How do you make it so one star can't hold a show hostage? How do you accommodate a rival broadcaster asking you to change the name of your show? These are questions that the makers of Search probably didn't set out to answer, but they certainly had to figure them out on the fly. For these reasons and more, this spy-fi show from the early 70s definitely belongs in the logbook. Welcome to the Logbook, a repository and chronicle of genre stuff that deserves to not be forgotten. And this time around, we're firing up the search engine for Search, a series that ran one season on NBC from 1972 to 73, after a successful pilot movie earlier in 72, which was not called Search. The pilot movie, starring Hugh O'Brian and Sir John Gielgud, was called Probe, totally the same concept that carried over to Search, and it tapped into not only James Bond mania, but the now familiar sight of NASA's super advanced mission control that everyone had gotten to know during the Apollo program. The whole conceit behind Search was that a competent at everything super spy couldn't do what he did without a whole backbench of trained experts in a high-tech headquarters. But who's running that show? The absolute #1 casting coup of this entire series. For this was the only television show that retained the services of the late great Burgess Meredith as an on-screen series regular. As the undisputed head of Probe Control, Burgess Meredith as Cameron called the shots over the probe operation. Unless, of course, O'Brien as Lockwood decided to go rogue, and what are the odds of a suave super spy doing that? Created by Leslie Stevens, also the creator of The Outer Limits, Probe seemed to have a bright future ahead of it and won a series order for the fall 1972 season, and picked up former Star Trek producer Robert H. Justman behind the scenes. But hold up. Hey, Peacock.
Hey, Amorphous Bluehead.
How are things going?
I don't know, Amorphous Bluehead. How are things going?
Well, I need you to rename your new potential hit show.
Why's that?
We already have a documentary series called Probe.
No way! Couldn't you just change the name of your show?
Nah, we'd never do that, for it is also a potential hit show.
Well, crap. Guess we'll retitle our show something completely generic and hope that doesn't confuse everyone.
Guess so. Thanks, Peacock.
Sure thing, Amorphous Bluehead.
You know what? I think we will go ahead and change the name of our show. How does Nova sound? Yes, that's right. The PBS series Probe forced NBC's Probe to search for a new identity, and then PBS changed the name of its Probe to Nova anyway. And that's the only former Probe most folks remember today. When it premiered in fall 1972, the show was now Search, but the secret agents were still called Probes. Also, agents as in plural? Yes, because somewhere along the way it was decided that it was kind of unlikely that one guy could be doing all this stuff all the time. So there were suddenly other secret agents. Hugh O'Brian as Lockwood now alternated cases with Doug McClure as C.R. Grover and Tony Franciosa as Nick Bianco. Each had their own personalities and their own way of doing the job, but they all three cracked the cases and got the girl. Although all three actors were in the opening credits, none of them ever shared screen time with the others. One can imagine an all-star team-up in Sweeps Month, but the show just didn't last long enough for that to happen. So why have a rotating menu of leading men? Simple, it was one sure way to keep any one star from exercising control over the series. If someone tried to put their foot down and threaten to slow down the show over salary or creative demands, their character probably would have met a tragic fate off screen, and a new one would have been cast. I mean, this super spy stuff is pretty dangerous business. It was a similar setup to an earlier NBC series, The Name of the Game, which did indeed fire one of its stars in its third season for trying to hold up the show. And that fired star happened to be Tony Franciosa. Awkward. As the search went on, lost treasures and scientific secrets and political machinations were all among the cases the three stars of the show had to crack. The one case they couldn't crack? Declining ratings and a declining budget. In the early episodes, Probe Control is this huge dark space with pools of lighting around its high-tech consoles. By the end of the season, the shadowy organization with top-secret clearances that sent its probes to solve the problems even the government couldn't figure out was moved to a more confined, brightly lit space, so I guess they couldn't crack enough tough cases to lease out the bigger office space with the mood lighting? Despite this, the back half of the season did have the good sense to finally give Cameron a spotlight episode, revealing his complicated, tortured backstory and allowing Burgess Meredith to strut his funky stuff. Which, come on, it's Burgess Meredith. Why not do that early and do it often? As for the ratings, Search was on Wednesday nights right before your local news, and up against the much more popular William Conrad series Cannon on CBS, produced by Quinn Martin. Cannon also fired broadsides against the Julie Andrews Hour, a variety show on ABC, forcing that network to pull Julie Andrews out of the line of fire and put her in a different time slot. Rather than relocating Search, NBC quietly canceled the show at the end of its season in 1973. Search is available on DVD, along with the pilot movie Probe as a separate release. Since streaming services are fickle creatures, the Logbook's policy is not to concern itself with where anything might be streaming, since that changes all the time, and I do try to future-proof the show. But you can find the links to buy the DVDs in the description below. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to our fantastic and loyal Patreon subscribers, and you can join them at patreon.com/thelogbook and join us on the Logbook's Discord to suggest topics for future entries in this series. The Logbook will return with more undeservedly obscure classics for your enjoyment as we talk about what we love, don't waste time on what we don't love, and maybe teach you a little TV history at the same time. You can always find out more at thelogbook.com.
Hey, Peacock.
Hey, Amorphous Bluehead.
How are things going?
I don't know, Amorphous Bluehead. How are things going?
Well, I need you to rename your new potential hit show.
Why's that?